Hello, this is Derek Henry, founder of Healing the Body and creator of the Thrive Online Health Program. And today I want to talk about 8 habits that have hijacked our hormones. Most people know that when your hormones are supported, you're healthy, you're happy, you're feeling good, your emotions are in check, everything's right with the world. Unfortunately, most of us right now aren't feeling those types of emotions, and that's because we've done so many different types of things in our life, unwittingly or not. A lot of these things aren't our fault. These things that just as part of the system has caused us to have these hormonal imbalances. But there is some things that we do on a day-to-day basis that's only contributing to the problem. So we need to work on what we can control and what we can do. And by identifying these 8 habits, you're going to have a better understanding of how we can start to make some adjustments in order to make sure our hormones are much happier. So the first thing that around hormones, and this might not make me a popular person, but it is the truth. Coffee can cause a lot of different hormonal issues. Now, I know a lot of people say, my coffee, I got to have that time with my coffee. It's my happy moment. And that may be true for that little part of the day. Maybe that's a great moment for you. But I would suggest that, switching out for another habit could bring the same amount of happiness without the pressure on your adrenals. Now, when you're drinking coffee on a day-to-day basis, especially if you're drinking more than 1 cup, but 1 cup a day is plenty, you're just constantly stimulating that fight or flight response in your adrenal glands. And as you do that over time, you continue to basically suck the adrenals dry. So they become very malnourished, they become very underperforming. Your adrenal glands are some of the key glands to help you adapt to any situation. If you can adapt to situations, you're going to find that your stress is going to be relatively maintained. If you can't, then everything is going to seem like a problem. Every single thing that's going to come into your life you're going to turn a molehill into a mountain, and you're not even going to recognize it, but people around you definitely will. So coffee, any caffeinated beverage for that matter, but coffee obviously being a very popular one, is one factor that definitely is going to disrupt your hormones. And if you want to get your hormones back in balance, you need to consider other ways to generate energy during the day and other ways to start your day, because there's certainly a number of different health beverages out there that you could start to drink on a daily basis that won't have the caffeinated effect and the harmful adrenal effect that coffee will have. So that's number 1. Number 2, could be a little bit more difficult for some people. Prescriptions and medications can cause a lot of hormonal issues. Now, I understand many people are on prescriptions and medications that they feel they need to be on, and maybe they do at this time. But we do need to consider that many of these prescriptions cause hormonal imbalances, some of them on purpose, like birth control pills, for example. But over time, these prescriptions and medications are going to be hard on the digestive system. They're going to be hard on the liver, 2 areas that do control some of our hormones. So again, if you start to deteriorate those areas, this is going to cause a deterioration in your hormones. So looking outwards and thinking of ways that perhaps you can come off medications or prescriptions would be beneficial. If not, then you just need to make sure that you start to do much better in all the other areas. And one of those areas would be malnutrition. In terms of not getting the right nutrients, is again going to affect our gut health, our liver health, our adrenal health, our overall health. All those different glands and organs that are helpful for balancing our hormones all need certain types of nourishment. So it's very important. One significant thing that most people are actually malnourished with, that if they actually fix this issue, that they would see, that would be a huge factor in terms of balancing their hormones, is vitamin D. Many people aren't getting enough vitamin D because we've been taught that the sun is not something to be celebrated, but something to be almost feared. Sun causes cancer, sun can cause sunburns, and yes, it can cause these things if you don't use it properly. If you use the sun properly, it is the greatest source of vitamin D, or vitamin D actually is a neuroregulatory hormone. And if you use it properly, you're going to find that your vitamin D levels are going to really support your hormone levels. Now, how do you do this? Well, again, the sun's the most important thing you can do. When it is out in your region, you need to make sure you're getting at least 15 to 20 minutes a day of your bare skin, up to the point where your skin may become slightly pink, and then getting out of the sun. Making sure you do that so that you can load up, because that's the best way to load up in the sun, and the least toxic way to do it as well, obviously, as long as you don't overdo it, which you should know with sunburn or anything else, sunstroke. You should see those things far in advance before they ever happen, and get out of the sun when necessary. But also you can take a vitamin D supplement during those off months in order to support those vitamin D levels. Most levels can be tested pretty simply through a blood test, but you also need to consider that the levels that are considered healthy by conventional medicine is often too low. There's different levels to consider, but I think most people agree that anything between, anything higher than 55 and upwards to 120 in terms of the measurement, I think is NGLs. Making sure that you are in that area would be important, but again, you could work with a functional doctor, somebody who understands vitamin D levels, and making sure that you get those areas supported. Another thing is xenoestrogens. Xenoestrogens is a big factor, and this is just man-made estrogen mimicking molecules that show up in our environment that disrupt our hormones, and they can be found in plastic bottles and the lining of tin cans and in our food. And maybe you don't do any of this stuff now, but we do have to realize that over the years when we did participate in drinking from water bottles or anything else that I've discussed, and there's a lot more things, that this stuff is embedded in your tissues. Unless you've done a really good job of cleansing, a lot of this stuff's going to be embedded in your tissues, so it's still going to be there. So if you cut the habit, great, but you need to make sure that you get rid of these things out of your tissues if you really want to see the hormonal balancing effect. Improper sleep patterns. This is another huge factor that many people seem to refuse to get right, and there's different reasons why we have improper sleep patterns, and we have many excuses. But the bottom line is, if you want your hormones to be balanced, you need to make sure that you're getting into the proper biological rhythm. So that means that making sure you're going to bed, between 10 and 11 at night, and you're getting up after 7 or 8 hours of good rest overnight. If you have to go to bed earlier because you have to wake up early, you just need to simply adjust that to make sure. It's no secret to anyone who has dealt with anybody who has a lack of sleep that person can become very angry, very irritated, very tired. There's a lot of different emotions that are around that, and that's because your hormones are severely affected when you don't get the proper sleep. But when you do get into that rhythm and you start to do that on a consistent basis, 6 to 7 days a week, you start to do that right, then you start to see that your hormones are going to start to feel more supported. You're going to feel more energy. Your cortisol and your melatonin are going to be released in the appropriate time periods of the day to support you in that rhythm. So get your sleep right, make that a new goal and in the new year, to make sure you get your sleep right, to make sure that your hormones can get back in balance. Stress, we'd be remiss without mentioning stress and how to control that. There's many different tactics that can be used. Some people might use adaptogenic herbs like medicinal mushrooms or Siberian ginseng. There's many different adaptogenic herbs you could use. Also, meditation is also becoming a huge habit, which is a great habit. Quieting your mind, because your mind is usually what's causing the stress in your life. You're thinking too much about things that you don't like, and this stress just continues to accumulate. So you got to learn how to quiet your mind. You got to learn how to be grateful. You got to learn how to appreciate things like nature, and getting into those moments more often, as much as you can. Everyone can do a little bit each day where you put yourself in a situation where you're in that appreciative or grateful moment, or you're happy, or you're laughing. Anything you need to do to get into that special place, whatever it happens to be for you, is very important to take that time on a day-to-day basis. An hour a day would be great in terms of dedicated time, and then obviously allowing that to cascade into the rest of the day. But if you can't do that, then just start somewhere and start to do some things that are for you and that make you happy, and that'll help with the stress. Electronics is another thing that we need to consider. That light beam that's coming off of your cell phone, off your TV. Some of us may tend to lay in bed and we're staring at our cell phones. This is not something that you want to do right before you go to bed. And again, this affects your sleeping patterns as well. But these EMFs are chaotic. They're not natural to our frequency. This is why we need to ground, or earth as they call it, to make sure that we neutralize these frequencies. But these electronics are causing a lot of hormonal disruption, and realizing that electronics aren't going away, and most people aren't going to ditch their cell phone, their TVs, or their electronics, or their computers. You just got to use them less during the day, and because there's a lot of times we use them when they're not necessary. And unplugging, in the evening, at least an hour before you go to bed, unplugging from your cell phone, your TV, any of those types of things. Instead, reading a nice book, or having a nice bath, or doing something that kind of winds you down. So again, you get into that proper sleep pattern as well. So we need to learn how to curb our electronics and use them properly. Another kind of relatively unknown factor that a lot of people, it causes hormonal disruption, is using the sunscreen. Of course, we talked about vitamin D before, but using too much sunscreen, which is going to leave you vitamin D malnourished if you do it for too long. But also sunglasses. There's a part in the back of the eye that the sun needs to hit in order to balance our circadian rhythms, or our biological rhythms, as I mentioned earlier. And when you wear sunglasses, you block that light. So there's not to say that sunglasses aren't important during certain times of the day or in certain situations, if you're in glaring light situations. And if you've been wearing your sunglasses obsessively, you basically go outdoors and you put your sunglasses on, because I understand that for some people they're a fashion statement mostly, and other people it's good for their eyes. But if you do that for too long, your eyes, just like your skin, if you don't get out in the sun enough, are going to become sensitive. So it might take a little bit of doing it a little bit amount each day, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, as much as you can, until your eyes start to get accustomed back to having that natural light come back into the eye. So obsessively wearing sunglasses or obsessively using sunscreen are two areas that are definitely going to affect your hormones negatively. So use them only in situations that they're really required, so that you can make sure that you get your hormones back in balance. Of course, this is just a few things. Again, hormones, there's a lot of different factors to consider, but the bottom line is, malnourishment, toxicities, and the way we think are the three key areas that are causing our hormones to be imbalanced. And prescription medications or synthetic hormone therapies and all these things, some of them may appear to work, but really they don't get at the source of the issue. They don't allow you to naturally heal your hormones. But when you start to get into a diet plan, like I enroll in the Thrive Online Health Program, once you get the right diet, and once you get the right supplementation, whole food supplementation, not synthetic multivitamins or anything like that, once you get that right, then your body starts to get the nourishment it needs. It starts to release the toxicities. It starts to give you a more positive mindset. And as I mentioned before, those are the three key areas in order to balance your hormones. So there's been many people who've been through their program. There's been over 20 different chronic health conditions alleviated, many of them hormonal related, whether it's been infertility, or whether it's anxiety, depression, anger, anything that you're feeling, sleep problems. All these types of things have been alleviated in the Thrive Health Program, primarily through the proper mindset and the proper nutrition and supplementation. But of course, there's other lifestyle factors as well, as I mentioned, like grounding. So we bring that all together, that comprehensiveness of it. It's not difficult. It's very simple to do. Just something simple that you need to follow in terms of nutritional plan and supplements for at least 60 days. And once you do that, as you're going through this process, you're going to find that you're much healthier and much happier. And then that's just a positive snowball that's going to help cascade into other areas of your life that's going to start to create the hormones that you actually want. So, Thrive Online Health Program registration is going to go until January 14th. So make sure that you check out the link below and get involved. If you want your hormones to get back into action and you want to have that healthy, happy, and love-filled life, then Thrive is a great place to start and end your journey with the hormones. So again, this is Derek Henry, founder of Healing the Body and creator of the Thrive Online Health Program, helping you to not just survive, but thrive.